Last time we talked, I had this. Oh, you want one?
Well, I'm going to hold it.
You gonna?
I'm going to hold it and look at it.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali, right?
Right.
Told me.
Muhammad Ali said he wanted to wrestle you. Are we going to go drink some beer and go fishing?
A big thank you to our sponsors for making this show possible.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Fred Minnick Show. As you've noticed, I am an enormous collegiate wrestling fan, as well as freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestling fan. I wrestled growing up. My kids wrestle. And not too long ago, I had the opportunity to interview Dan Gable on a virtual interview. And I'm very honored to have the great Dan Gable here with me in person. It's an absolute honor, sir. And once again, I got to greet you with the Gable grip. It's a pleasure, sir. How are you?
I'm pretty good. This is good for me being here because it's Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I just called my Kentucky contact and I asked them what they were known for. And I think he said 2 or 3 things, but I think he said horse racing. And I think he said beer or alcohol too.
Bourbon, definitely bourbon.
That's what he said. Yeah. And that's pretty cool. So, it goes back a long ways with me, but just it's only like Kentucky back 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and then Kentucky maybe 20 years ago, and then maybe 10 years ago. It's not like I'm in Iowa. It's every day, It's because mostly wrestling, and or now it's it's a little bit. It's kind of expanded just because I've got so many grandkids, 14, and a lot of them are in baseball and softball and wrestling, but they are carrying their future mostly in baseball at the college. So I've been following that a lot, and I think this town is known for, they provide bats.
Yeah, right? Yeah. This is the Louisville Slugger.
Yeah, and I think I just looked, because I stopped playing baseball at 9th grade. And I think I just looked, and I think I had 7 or 8 Louisville Sluggers still from my younger years, right till through 9th grade. Most of them are taped up, because back in those days when I broke a wooden bat, I taped it up and still used it. Now, nowadays they don't do that, or at that level, because you're talking about T-shirts. It was called baseball. I think I went through Optimist, and that was through 9th grade in baseball. And I looked and I saw Mickey Mantle's names on there, and I think I saw another Yankee on a couple of them, and most of them are broken. I think there's maybe 2 that weren't broken. But here I am talking baseball, and I'm a wrestling guy, Well, but that's what I was. Yeah. And I stopped playing baseball when I was 14, but I still followed it, and now I'm back in it because my grandsons are baseball players. Their dads were baseball players. And their dads wrestled a little bit. One dad wrestled 1 match, and then he walked home from the match because he got pinned and didn't like what happened.
That's common, right?
Yeah. And then the other one stayed in it for maybe a year, almost a year, but then he couldn't beat this one guy, so it made him mad, and so he focused on his baseball. But that one guy he didn't focus on, one guy that beat him ended up being a 2-time NCAA champion for the Hawkeyes.
Wow.
Jeff McGinnis. But,
wow. Well, another thing is you're a beer man now. Look at that.
Well,
I got me. So this is now my last time we talked. I had this. Oh, you want one?
I mean,
if I'm going to have one, you're going to have one.
Well, I'm going to hold it.
You're going to.
I'm going to hold it and look at it.
All right, here.
It says Gable on it, and you know what's funny about this beer is it's good, and I can't believe it's cold.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You don't drink your beer cold? You like your?
No, I drink my beer cold.
Okay.
All I heard growing up, because my mom and dad were beer drinkers. Most of my dad, mom sipped on it, but I heard every day about 5 o'clock. Well, if I was there, when I was young, because at 5 o'clock I was always in the wrestling room. Once I started 7th grade, but I would hear when my dad come home. First thing he'd do, open the door. Cold beer. My mom would get him one, and he'd have a cold beer. Now, that wasn't the only one he drank, but he drank a few more. But he definitely didn't have the Gable beer back then, but he helped make that Gable beer because he brought me up pretty good.
Now, so you drink beer when you were wrestling. Would you have a beer after a tournament?
Probably not till I was actually 21, And I don't think I did until I felt like I was tough enough that I could drink beer. I used to eliminate everything. I mean, I'd be strict. Mm-hmm. I mean, my favorite drink probably is Mountain Dew.
Oh.
But I cut all that out. And they didn't have that at the beginning. I think it came out about my sophomore year. And so after my sophomore year in high school, I said, I went undefeated. I won the states. I think I need to get tough enough that I don't have to be so strict on my diet. I'm so strict. I was just this, that way. I think I'm going to get tough enough to where I can drink a Mountain Dew, maybe after practice or something like that. And that was kind of my goal. And probably not during the season would I drink beer, but maybe after college for the last couple years on the way home or something, I'd stop and grab a beer somewhere on the way home when I'm walking. But I was kind of young and stupid. By that I mean, I can remember I was walking home from the practice. It was about 2 blocks, and then there was a grocery store, a little one, and then I had another block to walk home. So I just got done wrestling 3 hours and probably left about 8-9 pounds lighter. Worked really hard, and I popped a beer, and I was walking home. And this is how stupid I was, that I didn't know you could drink. You're not supposed to drink beer in public, I guess.
Well, it depends on where you're at. If you're in New Orleans, they don't care.
Okay, well, I was just in New Orleans not very long ago, but I don't know if I drank beer or not. But this cop pulled over and he says, "Is that an open beer?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "You 21?" I says, "Yeah." So I figured I was fine. He goes, "Well, you're still illegal because you can't have it in you can't walk down the main street or down the city and with a beer opened." And I said, "Well, I just live right here." He took me down to jail. Couldn't believe it.
Oh, wow.
He took me down to jail. And but I wasn't I was a little obnoxious because I was pretty mad when I thought he was just kidding. And so I called him a name. And so I think he was just going to book me for something. It wasn't public intox. It was just beer in a public place or something.
Yeah.
And so I think I called him a nasty word. And he
can't do that.
He threw me in. And so all of a sudden, word gets out that I'm in jail. And all of a sudden, this wrestler walks into the police station in his ISU issues, Iowa State University issues. That means a little brief.
Yeah.
What you wear under in practice. You wear shorts over it. And he says, "I can't believe they got you in here, Gable. I'm here to get you out." And they threw him in. But they threw him in the same cell, and we got to actually wrestle. We had to stay for 3 or 4 hours. But,
so you got to spar a little bit. We got to
work spar, and I think most of the police guys got a kick out of it, but they couldn't do anything about it, so they let us out. And on the way out, the guy that put me in wasn't there, and all the other guys said, "We would have never done this.
Yeah.
We would have never done this." But it's the way it is.
All right, so you're wrestling in a jail cell. Did you bump your head on the toilet?
Oh, not me, but my opponent. And he was a strong stud, but not as strong as this guy. So just,
what are some other strange wrestling spots you've wrestled?
Oh, I've wrestled everywhere. You can't. I mean, come on. When you're growing up, when you're a kid,
of course,
everybody wrestles. I mean, you're lucky to have carpet now.
But you got to admit, like wrestling in a jail cell, bumping your mate's head into a toilet, that's a little different. I'm thinking like, a barn, somewhere, some random spot. I trained in a barn.
That's where, in the 1971 World Championships, 1972 Olympic Games, when I was home to Waterloo, Iowa, my good friend, the Ford dealer, Jim Cordes, put a wrestling mat in the barn for his kid He was a little bit younger kid, and we trained there all the time, every time I came home. And in Waterloo, Iowa, my hometown, they had a lot of 12 by 12, small mats. The one in the barn was probably 24 by 24, but most mats are 40 by 40. So I would say I had 5 or 6 friends that were wrestling that their dads had bought 12 by 12s or by 16 by 16s and put it in their basement. So when I went home to Waterloo, Iowa from Ames, I always had a place to train. And I had one at my house. And I had one within I had my high school, which is a wrestling room, which was only right across the street. Then I had another barn, not a barn, but a garage, probably 2 blocks away. And then I had the one that we had about 5 miles south of town. That was the barn. And every once in a while, after a good wrestling practice, I would just run back home 5 miles. So,
That's incredible.
Well, it's, when you're trying to get something accomplished, I mean, if it's to a high extent, you got to sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to give something up. I mean, people look at me. I just was walking down the street yesterday, and this lady said to me, "Wow, you look really good," because I know who you are. And what do you mean? She goes, "Oh, you're just pretty good. Look like you're in shape and all that kind of stuff." And I said,
Did she want your number? Or?
No, she didn't want my number, but I gave it to her. No. Just kidding. But so, it's just one of these things that they don't know the sacrifice sometimes what you do to become really good. Mm-hmm. They just think I was born into wrestling. Well, I was born into wrestling. My mom told me that, so I believed it. But more than that, there was a lot of not scientific ways when I was training.
Right.
Like today. And 20 years from now, it's going to be better. Science is going to be better. People are going to go to the hospital and have surgeries a lot different 20 years from now than they do right now. So I'm a guy that, started having surgeries 1967. So that was 1 year out of high school. First surgery was right here on my elbow. I had some nerve damage. Nerves were hitting some bone chips. And so they just went in there and cut the bone chips out and put it back up, put it back together. But I mean, I'm kind of a bionic man. I am. I mean, how many hips do people have? 2? 1?
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Well, I had those, but I have now 6, if you count those.
You've had that many hip replacements?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And what's really good is if they need to do another one, which they say they don't, of course I'm going to outlive them, but they'll be so much better.
Yeah.
I think when they first put them in, they're probably the first ones, and I kept wrestling with my hips transplants. So I think they lasted 6, 7 years. But now they last 20, 30, 40 years. I just had a knee replacement a year and a half ago, and they said it's probably going to be good for the rest of my life. Well, and they looked at my last set of hips from about 10 years ago. They look perfect. But the first ones wore out real quick. Of course, I kept wrestling, but it's not that I don't stop working out, but I have become smarter. And it's like when you wrestle, you're really grinding, and your hips really get a lot of work. And then I kept running. And when I stopped running and just did biking, that gave me a great chance to have longevity. Just because this, you're not doing that. You're just sliding.
Yeah.
So it's you
could always go back into swimming, right? Because you were like a prolific swimmer.
Always I was a state champion backstroker. Yeah. Came off my back, became a wrestler. That was when I was 12. But swimming is when all else is kind of, I can't do that today. I'm too beat up or something. I can always swim. You can only swim. So that's, it's good. Now I want to make sure it's not too deep.
Yeah. So I want to go back to 1997. I think I was a sophomore in college at Oklahoma State, and we were all but ready to, say we're going to win the national championship that year. We were feeling really good.
Well, you beat us.
And we did. We
in the
beat
national duels.
It was a prolific win, and you announce your retirement sometime around there, and then you go to the NCAA tournament. You have almost every weight class as an All-American. You have 6 in the finals and 5 champions. Now, the whole world's thinking that you're retiring after this. Were you looking at those matches thinking, you know what, maybe I got one more year? Were you reconsidering at that moment?
Well, when I was reconsidering was not during that time where we were kicking butt during that tournament. It's when we were getting beat.
Oh.
Because who wants to go out not winning, especially when you win all the time. So, that was really going to be hard on me to walk away, especially in my hometown area of Waterloo, Cedar Falls, UNI. And, I needed help. I needed to go take at least a year off, get a few surgeries, and be able to walk and be able to maneuver. So, it was something that I almost knew that I was going to have to take that next year off. But when we came back and won by 50 points, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah, it was a record at the time.
Yeah, we won by something like 50 points, and we had 5 champs, and that Okie Stater beat us in overtime, Guerrero. There's a price to pay to be able to be successful. And it's not just, I could have stopped wrestling after 72 and wouldn't have had to have a lot of the surgeries that I've had. But, medicine's so good now that you can do things and come back and have a really healthy life. But the big thing is that you don't even have to have some of these surgeries if you get a coach that stays up with intelligence. And a lot of my kids in my last years of coaching were a little bit different than the ones when I first years of coaching, 25 years earlier, that type stuff, or the ones I trained with. Because you would just train differently, smarter. You always got to be tough. But as you learn what wrestling's all about, or sports was all about in your area, you become smarter, and it's of age. And it gives you a better life. And it even might even teach you to learn some things with your wrestling that make you a better wrestler. I know when I lost my last college match, which is probably one of the most famous matches of all time. It is. The Larry Owings loss. You win 181 matches in a row and you got one to go. You're not going to lose. Over 3 and 4, 7 years. Of course, you're going to lose if you don't prepare every time out. That's just a lesson you got to learn. And you can't take anything for granted. This beer we're drinking it because we're celebrating a little bit right now, but
for sure.
But you certainly don't drink beer right before your match, or do you? But if you do, you better be like a guy named Rick Sanders.
Yeah.
And that guy is from Portland State, and he's a guy that needed Gable to. He was our first world champion of all time, but he was a beer drinker, and sometimes after weigh-ins, he drank a couple beers. And I remember during the Olympic Games, because he was on the same team with me, and he came off the mat, I'm the semis, and he's kind of shaking his head. He goes, Gable, I think I had one too many beers after weigh-in. And I didn't know he was drinking beer after weigh-in. But he's the guy that gave up. He was going to give up his life of the way he's living, was going to give it to me now, because he saw Ben Peterson, John Peterson, Chris Taylor, some of the other guys on the team, Wayne Wells, and most of these guys had a lot of influence. I had influence on them, they had influence on me, but we had 6 medals that year, and nobody thought that the Peterson brothers probably were going to medal. Not nobody, they thought. Obviously, I knew, but it's one of these things. But Rick Sanders comes up to me after the Olympics in 72, and he'd already been our first world champion back in the late 60s. But he got second in the Olympics in 68, and now he got second in the Olympics in 72. And he says to me, he says, I'm thinking I'm going to turn myself over to you because I saw what you've done here. And you knew I've always been ribbing you a little bit about Gable. Rick Sanders here. I drink beer. Gable, you drink milk.
Yeah.
Now I drink beer. It's a little bit of celebration, but he goes, when are we gonna train? When are we gonna start? Because we're just done. We just finished. He got the silver medal. He just got beat by a Japanese. And I said, well, Rick, I'm going to the Greco-Roman practice tomorrow morning. This is the night after we won the medals in Munich, because Greco-Roman was going to have a couple days practice, and they were going to start. He goes, tomorrow? He goes, come get me, would you? Because I'm going to stay out a little bit late tonight. So I went and got him at about 8 o'clock in the morning and knocked on the door. It took him a little while to get to the door. And when he got to the door, he was with a young lady. Okay. And I got my eyes full a little bit there. But he just said, man, it's already time to go. I said, yeah. He says, I think I'm going to start tomorrow. Close the door. That's fine, whatever. It's up to you. I mean, you just got done wrestling the Olympic Games, you got a silver medal. But, you want the gold, and so you're going to find a way to get it for the next Olympics. But the guy hitchhiked around Europe. He went out on the instead of going to practice that day later, he woke up, or the next day after that, he hitchhiked. He was going to go around different countries, and he went off a cliff. And he died. Never got the chance. And it's pretty amazing. There's a book out on him right now that I was reading, and a lot of those stories are in there. And he was about 4 or 5 years older than me. He kicked my butt once when I was young in freestyle when I first got to college. He was seasoned, and he always teased me about it. And he always teased me about him being a crazy guy and I'm being too straight. And so he didn't get the chance. It's pretty sad. Pretty sad.
It's a shame. There's a few sad stories like that in wrestling. One of them, different circumstances, but like the Foxcatcher story.
Oh, Dave Schultz.
Yeah, that's a awful one. Did you ever go to Foxcatcher?
Oh, yes, I did. And the same guy that killed Dave Schultz, when I first got there, we had the world team there. And I was the coach of that team. It had come home from another tournament, but I was going to take over, and I only had a short time to train these guys, and they didn't do so well in this tournament. So I was going to watch them that first day and then kind of make a decision. But right when I walked in John DuPont's gymnasium where they had the mats, he pulls me over, and we got everybody there, and he says, guys, coach is here. Dan Gable, he's here. He's going to coach you. But guys, I'm in charge.
Wow.
I just kind of shook my head a little bit. He didn't really know a lot about wrestling. He did enter one tournament once.
Yeah.
And Dave Schultz, who was living on campus there, actually, behind the scenes, talked to the guys and told them might have to pay him a little bit, I don't know, but told him to lay down for this guy. Let him win this tournament. And they did. They were his friends. And it was kind of a small little thing, and so Dave Schultz actually did that for John DuPont. And John DuPont ended up killing Dave Schultz on his campus of where he lived because he thought Dave was getting too much in control of and not listening or something like that. It's amazing what things happen in life, like that. That's just totally unbelievable. But when I was there, when I saw that, I understood this isn't a normal way to do things.
Right.
And we were going the not normal ways just because he had a lot of money. I'll tell you what, it's about performance. And then you can have some money because you'll have the opportunity. I'm sitting here talking to you. You wouldn't be talking to me if I hadn't done something in my life, right?
Well, I mean, I've admired you from the time I got on the mat and was awful to the next year I was awful, and eventually I started winning matches. But it is a little I wouldn't say I had to get permission from my friends who wrestled at Oklahoma State, but I had to let them know that I was interviewing you because, there's that animosity from Oklahoma State toward Iowa.
Wow, you did that.
And I was like, hey guys, I'm interviewing Dan Gable. And they're like, oh my God, he's a legend. That's awesome. So I was thinking they were going to give me a little crap about that.
We had the Great Plains freestyle tournament about December every year, early season. And there was 5 Okie State wrestlers in my weight class. And I had to wrestle all 5 of them because of the way the system worked.
Yeah.
I think I pinned 4 of them, beat the other one pretty bad. But I've seen Okie State wrestling at its finest. And it was in Stillwater. And one time we actually lost. And then another time, actually I was wrestling when I got done with the match, they raised both our hands. And they finally went back and rescored it, and I won by, I think I won. I mean, I didn't win that much. I was pretty young. I think it was my sophomore year, but that was the first year I was eligible. I think I won like 5-6-1 or something. I don't know, but somehow he ended up having as many points as I did. And it's
the home turf
mat advantage a little bit, yeah. But it's you've seen a lot of things, and that's kind of what my mentality is. My mentality is, hey, I got a big old Russian poster on my wall all the time through college, and in my home, and I had a wrestling mat down there, and it said "Beat the Russians," and I just didn't really understand what that meant. But then you went and looked at the record books, and I think at that time there was maybe 55 world championships that they were involved in, and they had won 50 of them.
Wow.
As a team. And so, that's domination, and so then I get ready to go to Russia for the very first time, and I was warned by Bobby Douglas that, Gable, you're really good. You're going to do well, but I don't know if you can survive the cheating. And I go, what do you mean cheating? I probably should have known a little bit, but just because of what's Stillwater. But and that's where you went. But that was just one match. I mean, I wrestled down there many times, and they were fine most of the time. But this one time,
yeah,
we even got in the state paper, the Des Moines Register, we got a letter from Oklahoma State apologizing for the referee's calls. That was at our state paper. Anyway, so, I don't know where I was going with that. But so you go to Russia, and all of a sudden, there were 9-minute matches, 3-3-3. There's 2 minutes left, and they stopped it because the guy just went ahead of me 4-3 or 5-4, and the match is over. And we go, no, you got 2 minutes. And they showed their clock, and it was on zero. They didn't have one on the wall. So then what happens is my coach had his clock, and he says there's 2 minutes there. And it was just right at the beginning of the third period. The guy wasn't going to beat me because he was gassed, and that's why they stopped it. But then it was actually the first round of this Tbilisi tournament. But you weren't eliminated. You just couldn't win the tournament then. The best you could get. Well, no, you could win the tournament. So nowadays, if you get beat, you can't win the tournament, which is more fair, right? And so then I go back, and second round I beat another Russian. Third round I beat another Russian and beat somebody from Turkey. Fourth round, okay, so I'm in the semis. Well, I'm not really in the semis because I lost that match. There's a point system back then. So anyway, I can remember all of a sudden the guy I was wrestling, that beat me. Well, he didn't really beat me, but because he owes me 2 minutes. But all of a sudden, I see where he's going to make the finals. And so, or he's not going to make the finals. That's what it was. He was behind. And so I'm back in this. So I turn and leave with 10 seconds to go. That next day when we come back, he won that match. And he only won it because that other guy was told, you can't win if Gable keeps winning, because you got to keep this guy in contention for the gold medal. Because I'm going to wrestle somebody for the silver medal, and he's going to wrestle somebody else for the gold. And then it depends on how many. We had these black marks or bad marks, and whoever's got less bad marks, and I think I had 2 or something like that. And actually, I had more than that because I lost that match. So I had 3, probably had about 4. And when you get to 6, you're out of the tournament. It's crazy stuff back then. But it's the way it is.
Switching gears a little bit to the modern age of wrestling. How do you feel about NIL in collegiate wrestling? Because we've seen a lot of wrestlers make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's like that all across collegiate sports. But wrestling seems to be one of those sports where there's a lot of money coming in to get the elite wrestlers.
Yeah. And that tells me that we've had wrestlers that have went on to be pretty good business people, because that's probably where their love is coming from, or close to something like that. And so, that's good. I like that, but because wrestlers have a lot of discipline, and we have to have it. We have to learn a lot of things. And I personally have to jump aboard it, even though I don't like it. I think it's not based on loyalty. It's not based, we're taking that out of there. I think it's not based on performance. Now it's based on more money. And so I think however it is right now, you got to be on board, but it's going to be different shortly. That's what I think.
Okay.
But do you want to fall behind? No. So I could be wrong. This thing could be worked out to where it's actually pretty good. But the way they have it right now, there's no limit, I don't believe. And by that, I mean, I'm pretty sure, and I came from a pretty conservative family. I'm pretty sure I never knew anything about money until I was maybe 38. How to handle it, how to make it, just, worked hard in what I did, and never looked at a lot of the little similar things that that can help make money. So, how can you give 18-year-olds that money? I mean, it's got to go some other channel. Maybe it goes to their dad or so, but I don't know that. I just don't know.
Do you think that it could take away some of the hunger from wrestlers if they get $100,000?
Oh yeah, I do. I definitely think that. I also, I just think that only a few colleges in wrestling are going to be able to afford to give. So we might have a new division instead of having our Division I, in which we have 75 or 80 schools, which we used to have a lot more. But I think that maybe the division of the top 20 or something. Maybe you're going to have the Big Ten Conference, and might have some other conference, big, I don't know, Pac-12, Big 12, but it's not. But I don't know. But that's probably where it's heading right now. And I don't think we're going to totally lose wrestling, but I don't think it's good for our sport. I don't think it's good. But hey, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert in that. I'm an expert in the sport.
What is the state of wrestling right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
You're asking the wrong guy, because I look at it way big. I look at it like, who's the best wrestling country in the world? Russia. Mm-hmm. Now, you could say, well, USA just won well, they didn't, but Japan just won, but the Worlds, and that was pretty good for them. But over the years, it's like you look at collegiate wrestling. You got to say Oklahoma State, Then you got to say Iowa State. Then you got to say the University of Iowa, And now you're saying, then you had Minnesota for a couple of years, but then you got dominant is Penn State, and so probably the University of Oklahoma State, the University of Iowa, and Penn State are the three main schools that had 10 or championships or more or something like that, and some of them are all like 6, 7 in a row. And if I was coaching, wow, at Iowa or Iowa State, I would love the challenge to take on somebody that's dominating right now. I love that challenge for the Russians. The Russians were dominating, yet guess who toured Russia and kicked some butt,
Yeah.
And guess who came to the Olympics to beat one guy? The Russian wrestling team. They're going to beat me. That's what the coach. That makes great news. But I take on those challenges. Where am I at right now? I'm in Kentucky, right? And I think you asked me. I asked you what was you guys known for. You didn't say wrestling.
No, Kentucky's not known for wrestling.
But that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I want to expose it.
Yeah,
because
Bellarmine is our first D1 program.
Unbelievable sports that if you stick with it and you get in it, you're going to have a lot of tools for life.
So here's a question for you. I'm a parent of two boys who wrestle, and I see a lot of parents who did not wrestle struggle with the sport. They don't understand.
You're right.
Some tears, a little bit of pain is nothing. Like that's like I see that with my kids. I'm like, this is part of it. Brush it off. You'll have a better time. You get around. What is your advice to parents who did not wrestle and their kids wrestle? Because
it's brutal. It's brutal, man. I mean, if you want to watch your 5-year-old get beat up. I mean, boxing. I mean, this is the great city for boxing. I mean, Muhammad Ali, right?
Right.
Someday I would like to wrestle you, Gable. That's what Muhammad Ali told me at an awards ceremony one time. But anyway.
Okay, well, let's step back here.
Let's get back.
So, Muhammad Ali said he wanted to wrestle you.
Yeah, no, don't forget the other stuff.
I know, but did you wrestle him?
No.
Oh, okay.
He was already as I talked like that, he could barely talk.
Okay.
But we were both getting some great awards, great award. And it was just amazing to me that he even said anything to me.
Yeah.
Because I loved boxing growing up. I was a YMCA guy, and we had boxing, we had wrestling, we had all those combat sports. And they're not in high schools anymore and stuff like that. And I can understand that because the object's to knock somebody out,
Right.
And wrestling, we have to struggle to make sure that we keep it safe, and we do. I mean, it's probably not as bad as football, I mean, collisions.
Oh yeah, wrestling.
We're not collisions.
Not at all. So back to it. What's your advice to parents who are getting their kids into wrestling for the first time?
I would probably look and pick and get some advice about the coach. And because I think that makes a big difference. See, we usually put our best coaches at the higher levels, like the Olympic level, the college level. Our best coaches should be at every level. When you get kids coming in, we have to have good coaches at that beginning level. So some of these coaches that maybe should oversee some of this younger stuff, because I know that oftentimes just parents who wrestle will volunteer when they want to start a program, and they'll just be a coach, and they really didn't have much coaching ability. Now, if they were in a job where they had to counsel a lot of people, they might be doing a good job. There's just common sense. But in wrestling, it's just like, it hurts. It hurts. The strain on the face. And when the mom's watching that strain, you better be on top.
Yeah.
Because you might have the mom on the mat too.
They
get
bit. Aggressive.
Yeah. So what you tell them is you have to show them what the disciplines are. And the disciplines are life skills for life and beyond. And beyond, I mean, if you have faith.
So what I'm seeing, so my kids are part of Coach Shuck's program here at Bellarmine.
Confidence, man.
And it's absolutely confidence. And one of the things that they are teaching, they're asking them to share every time they get on the mat. They're asking them to share their win for the day, what happened to them on the day something they won at before they get in their exercises, and at the end, what was their win from practice? What did they learn from practice?
That's good. I like that.
And my oldest son, his mindset is win, 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 win. And the coaches are like saying, no, right now you need to be focusing on this. Not everything is about winning. At what stage in wrestling does it become about winning?
I think at every higher level of education, it goes a little bit more towards winning.
Mm-hmm.
So when you jump, and here's the thing, you lose a lot of kids. After high school, you lose probably 2/3 of them, maybe, and then they go on to college, the other third. And then after college, maybe you lose 2/3 of those again, or even more than that, and they go to the Olympic effort to train and try to become a world champion, Olympic champion. So ask me that question again.
So one of the things that I have seen that makes successful, like elementary programs, pee-wee programs, small kids, is that the coaches do a really good job of getting them to thinking about getting better and improving and having fun. Having fun is a big part of it. But at some point in wrestling, it's about winning. And my question is, at what stage does it become about winning?
I think never take winning out of it, no matter when. But it gets a little more elevated as you go on, and it should. And then how you handle it, too. So that winning thing is never too late to add an element of higher levels of discipline, what I call. I mean, it's like, why did Larry Owings beat me? Because I wasn't disciplined in my warm-up, and I wasn't disciplined in when I talked to the press, and I wasn't disciplined during the match because I hadn't warmed up. And so
how often do you think about that match?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
5 times a day, 10 times a day?
I had to have that loss.
Yeah.
I mean, that loss made me, because then I was able to, I went back. See, I'm one of these guys that keeps logs. I got a book, and I know where I was every day for the last year. And so I went back and I saw flaws. But the big thing I saw flaws was right at the tournament, not staying focused. I'm talking to you right now, but I shouldn't be doing that if I'm getting ready to compete.
Right.
I should wait till afterwards. I mean, you might say after a match, you might have a little brief interview, do your work, do your justice, but then get on to your next match and so on and so forth. So Larry Owings, his quote was, "Gable, if I had to do it over again, I would have not won that match, because I wanted to be a world and Olympic champion, and that match messed me up."
Wow.
Yeah, he said it cost me my wife. I got a divorce.
Wow.
Because he was already married, I guess. But I don't know that much about him because he lived way out in Seattle or out from Canby, Oregon. I know a lot about him, but that's pretty amazing. If that match has been voted the top match of all time in history for college wrestling by that some category, and but yet what that match did for me, after that, not just for the next 2 years winning worlds and Olympic titles, but all my coaching years, because there was so much involved. In fact, my coaches at Iowa State, 15 years later, my assistant called me up and said, I want to apologize for that match you lost. And I was at Iowa winning national championship as a coach. Les Anderson was his name. He says, I should have stepped in and pulled you away from those people that were interviewing you and following you around and all that kind of stuff. I didn't do my job, he said. And then Coach Nichols did the same thing. It took a long time for him to do it. But maybe they just didn't understand it either. And they always thought I was probably good enough. How do you win 7 years in a row and then just one match to go and then you lose? Well, that's higher levels of competition. And you got some guy that thought he could beat you. And when somebody thinks they can beat you in their head, they have a good shot at it.
That's all it takes.
Yeah,
it takes the heart, it takes the mindset. And if I've learned anything in wrestling is that once you get on the mat, your rank don't matter. Doesn't matter.
The thing about when I mentioned life skills about wrestling, I came in here today and you just came from a workout.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just came from a workout.
Yeah.
From what was it again?
Jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu, yeah. It's a form of wrestling. A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's you've taken some skills from wrestling and you're applying it to as you get older, and that's good. And it's probably not quite as hard as wrestling. It might be. If you get choked, you get choked.
Oh, it's so jiu-jitsu is not on the level of conditioning as wrestling, but it's pretty. We go like just a standard practice. We'll go 6-minute rounds.
Really?
Yeah. So
wow.
and it's a constant 6-minute round. It's standing. The one thing that is there's a lot of on your back. You got the whole guard position.
I freak out.
Yeah. You can't go on your back at all, even to this day.
And like I said, I think I told you this earlier, but that's what people ask me when I started wrestling. And the bottom line is I asked my mom when I started wrestling, and she said, when you came home from the hospital the first night, I walked in there and I put you on your back, but all of a sudden you were off your back. And so she says, you started the first night. So you know what that do for me? That helped me. And who's not going to believe their mom? And so it's like that gives you confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. That parenting is pretty important.
Well, Coach, it is an honor, absolute honor for me to sit down with you, and I want to thank you for everything you've done for the sport. This is a beautiful sport, and you are, you are it.
Well, I'm here to watch, and we're doing this interview and promotion for watching Iowa with a first-year NCAA Division I team.
Yeah, Bellarmine. Yeah.
Bellarmine. But, I'm a little worried just because it's hard to, you get people in positions of authority and they try to make the best moves they can.
Yeah.
And I just want them to know here that you can't go wrong with wrestling. You really can't. Because
no, I think every school, every small school that has a football program, that when they look in the stands, they see no one there. They're losing all this money on football. Their basketball team sucks. Bring in wrestling. We sold out. I say we. Bellarmine sold out the duel tonight for Iowa. They sold more tickets for this than any other sport outside of basketball for Bellarmine. That's how big of a deal this is. That's how powerful wrestling is, and it brings in people from all states because wrestling fans will always show up, and the kids, they love to learn from the college wrestlers.
Well, that's why I'm here. I'm
Absolutely.
here to promote the sport because when I said Kentucky, one of my best friends is from Kentucky, and he's back in Iowa ready to go pheasant, and I got to be with him tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So we're going to drive quite a ways back tonight. I'm not even going to be able to watch this whole match tonight.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm doing some more promotion.
Yeah, boy.
And it's more important for me to get out and visit with you, and then you get me on these podcast, and you
Yes, sir.
make me more famous and sell more beer. And then I got
Yeah.
a nutrition drink that we drink after
Yep.
after we win.
Yeah.
And so it's all good. I appreciate you having me here.
Well, it's an absolute honor, sir. Thank you so much for coming to Kentucky. And go ahead.
I even got a museum named after me.
Oh, you do?
And,
Yes,
and
sir.
the guy that came with me, Mike Doty, he's the guy that tries to keep the museum alive. I mean, it's like, it's not easy to raise money for museums. So
That's true.
So that's why you got to get out and hit the road, and we're broadcasting something to. I bet none of your listeners even know that in my hometown of Waterloo, there's a museum for wrestling, and that's pretty amazing. And of course, you're drinking the Gable beer, and it's going to expand. It's going to get out of Iowa as well. It's here in Kentucky right now, but we brought it. I don't know if it's illegal to bring it across state border.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about that.
Okay, so we won't talk about that. But it's in Iowa, but it's going into Illinois this year too.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's helping
I
wrestling.
bet you we can sell you a few cases in Iowa. So if you're in Iowa, or Illinois, or soon to be in Kentucky, make sure you go check out Gable beer. It's a golden lager. It's very refreshing, and I got to tell you, it is. I love pilsners. I love lagers. This is delicious. It's really good. So
Well,
don't change it.
I brought that 12-pack in. You've got one left there, so. No, you didn't. You only had one, so you know your limit.
Are we going to go drink some beer and go fishing?
We'll go drink some beer and go wrestling.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
thank you.
Well, in honor of your former teammate.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on the Fred Minnick Show. Everyone go check out Gable Beer. Check out his nutrition drink. Go hit his Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa. And you know what? Start becoming a wrestling fan. Check out the collegiate wrestling duels. You can find them on Flow Wrestling, ESPN Plus. They're really all over the place right now. And it's a good time to be a wrestling fan. That's going to do it, y'all. Cheers.